Prepare for a fusion of knowledge and exhilaration, where education and excitement collide.
Taking you on an adventure that expands your mind and speaks to your spirit.
I'm Master Nick.
I'm Lady Dee.
We are the Dom Life.
This podcast contains sexually explicit topics and adult content.
It is intended for listeners 18 and older.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are ours alone, based on our personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences.
We understand that others may have different opinions and experiences, and we respect that. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at www.thedomlife.com.
But I will tell you, some of the hottest things in the world happen. Like, hey, come over. I'm going to put a chair down there. So this was the first interaction with the slave that he found, and it happened and whatever. And we brought her in. He said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to have a chair facing this way. You will greet her at the door. You will put the cuffs on her. You will lead her in and sit her down on the chair. You will then blindfold her, whatever. And there was a whole agreed upon thing, and fuck, it was hot.
It's hot to be included that way. Yeah.
It was sexy as hell.
Yes.
And she was beautiful, like drop dead gorgeous, beautiful. Like, yeah, I was like, oh, okay, so I could do this. So that was my second.
You know, it's interesting listening to these stories together. It taught us a lot, right?
Yes.
It took us places that we didn't know, pushed our boundaries in good and bad ways, making us the people that we are and really bringing us here. It's interesting to hear those stories. And as I'm reminded, I'm like, yeah, that's where I picked up on that. That's where I really liked that. I came from a very religious background. And so following rules was second nature to me. And I sit here and I pick up on it and I go, yeah, that's why I like that. That's why I liked all that hard, rigid rule following.
Yes.
Because it was just in my nature. And it wasn't hard for me.
Well,
as far as the relationships as we're talking about, that the first two of mine were not romantic. And that was all I needed. There was never a desire for me, once that was said, there was never a desire or an opportunity for those things to go further.
You didn't ever have the need inside you either.
No.
You were you're good in this role. Did you have other partners that you were with, or it was just that DS?
They were both very monogamous, and they were very clear that there wouldn't be anybody else.
Okay.
In fact, I did have contracts.
Yes.
With both of them.
We've discussed it.
You know,
when I was doing my contract renewal, I said, I know I can't see Sir Dante's contract, but do you have anything that you would be willing to share with me in previous contracts? Because I'm just trying to see where ours are.
So, for instance, that first Dom had, it was about a list of 14 rules, and I was required to know them on the spot. And so
14 doesn't sound like a lot now,
it's
does
not.
it?
I guess it's a list of rules
compared to your current.
Oh, heavens, no. Not with subsection, paragraph things, no.
Oh my God,
But I had to have them memorized, and I had to be able to recite them to him
by number. Like if he said, were they numbered? Like what's 7?
It wasn't that specific, but it was, when I need you to list these rules, because he wanted me to know them all. The whole point of it was not to know specific things or to have some kind of recall. It was, he wanted to know that those rules and what I was doing and what was expected of me was constantly in my mind.
Oh, okay.
And so I mean, not a contract per se, but definitely a prescribed written list of rules that I had.
Okay.
And then with the second Dom, it was much more of a contract. He had very much laid out into sections and headings and lots of things. Obviously not expected to memorize all of those things, but laid out some very specific things about, about communication, laid out specific things about specific trainings.
Now, this is the second one that ended up ending because of life crashed together and you're gone.
And so, I mean, his was definitely more prescribed. What is a dominant? What is a submissive? What do those roles have and then, very, very clear on things like the submissive yields these things. These are consensual things. These are things that are given freely. And and then some of the basic things like what you went through, what we both talked about in contracts about like, you will wear a collar when we are here. You will
when
check
when I do the Dom Life podcast, I
Right.
wear a collar.
Right.
If I don't, there's repercussions.
Right. Exactly.
That never happened.
I mean, I over here, I'm never allowed to be I'm without a collar.
But yours locks.
Mine does lock. I literally,
You have to ask to have it taken off to shower.
I have,
or when
I-
you,
well, I
you
clean it.
shower. You're right. To clean it.
Clean it. I am allowed one 15-minute period to clean and put my collar back on.
Do you ever feel like, oh my God, I just want to cut this thing off?
Yes.
Or
I just thought
like
about
I get hyper, I get tension and
Yes.
I get like, I don't know. I get claustrophobic. It's claustrophobic. And it's every so often, like,
I just
yeah.
I want it off. I'll tell you, I've had this past week when I was sick, I had strep throat. And of course that causes, things in your throat to get swollen. And there have been a few times that I have, I guess the best word is this panic. Like, oh, it's like, it's tighter. It's like
choking me. I can't breathe.
I gotta get it off.
Yeah.
And, I love Sir Dante. And one of the reasons I do is because of how seriously he takes our relationship. So he doesn't immediately be like, oh, let me take that off for you.
No.
He literally is kind of like, and I can admit that in these moments, it's not the answer that I want to hear. I'm like, can I please just take my collar off for just a little bit? And just like, and his answer is always no. And he doesn't just leave me there. Right. He doesn't leave me there. He's like, okay,
he's
I understand.
Touching and he's checking.
He's like,
he
I
says
understand.
no, but
I understand that this is how you feel right now. I'm not going to take your collar off, but what can we do to make you feel better? Okay. So he does have those moments, but like I said, in the end, even through all those moments, number one, I'm not talking about a full, anxiety, panic attack. Right. I'm just feeling this way for a moment. So I want to differentiate. It's not like I'm having a mental break and I can't,
yeah, no.
But when I'm having these moments where I feel that way, he totally respects our contract, which is it doesn't come off like that. That's not really a reason that it can come off. And, but he helps. Once again, that's not something to be extra dominant and just tell me how it's going to be. No, he helps me work through it. Once again, at the end of it.
And that's what makes him.
He makes me better. I mean, we make ourselves better together in that. And we work through it together.
Working through it together. Mm-hmm. He's not just swinging his dick around saying I'm the...
Exactly.
I cannot stand dominants that don't listen and understand. And that's what he does for you. Mm-hmm. Even if he says no.
Yes.
He listened and understood and said, let's find an alternative to fix this. Like, let me help you to work through this.
It helped me this week when I had that moment. I was like, my throat is so swollen and I really want to take this off. I stopped myself because I went, if you ask, he's going to say no. And then what's he going to do? He's going to tell you and help you calm down. And I was actually able to do that internally. Like, I didn't ask him at all this week to take my collar off, but I had that moment. But because of how I saw that he handled it, I was able to do that for myself.
Right.
I was able to do that for myself. And once I did that and took a minute and went, okay, you don't feel good, but you're okay. That moment passed for me.
How did you find your first couple of dominants?
Yeah. So I was at a point in my life, like I said, where I was just like, I want to experience new things. And so that first dominant I actually found on the app Field, which Field considers itself, it's not like a BDSM per se, but it's a lifestyle, obviously looking for things that are a little bit more outside the norm.
Right.
So you do find people who are, they're also looking for something outside the norm. And so there's a little bit more flexibility. I find that it's easier to strike up these, kinky BDSM conversations, things a little outside the norm with people on Field.
Okay.
And so I found the first one on Field.
Okay. And then the second one?
The second one, so the first one did not end well either. It ended after only 10 days. And so when he did, he just said, I'm releasing you. Oh, no. And this is my reasoning. And by the way, I did deserve it because I broke a rule I was 10 days
Right.
into BDSM, and he told me that he talked to a friend, and that friend reminded him, if there is a doubt, there is no doubt. And he said to me, I have doubts about you. Well, you should. I was 10 days old. I was a baby submissive, 10 days old. I don't think it was the appropriate response.
Right.
I think it was totally okay to say, that is way not okay for you to break a rule. And so this is what happens. He had the opportunity to teach me.
Leaving is not dropping you
Mm-hmm.
is not,
Of course, DS relationships, even if they're not romantic, they're intense, right?
yes.
And so I found it and lost it in 10 days. And by the way, once again, no community. Found him on an app that's not kinky. He disappeared. He literally disconnected from me and was just fucking gone. I was like literally sitting on my bed going, what do I do now?
Right.
And so that was what actually drove me to find the second one.
Okay.
I was like, okay, so this exists in the world. What do I do now? What do I do now? Well, okay, Zorra, do what you always do. Go get more information. So I hit up the internet and began to look. And I found FetLife purely through, I guess you would say, my own drive that now I'm desperate to find where to find these people. And I began to look and I began to read and I began to connect and it began to connect. And I finally hit FetLife, and all of a sudden I felt like I hit the jackpot because then I could actually reach out and meet people. And of course, this is a great place to learn things. And that's where I found it.
The second relationship that I had, so I already talked about the first being making some serious mistakes, going in the house, letting you chain me up on the first time we're doing BDSM. And he prodded me into it. He knew as a dominant how my submissive will act in certain. That's the thing you have to be cautious of.
Yes.
Because they know how to push your buttons to force you into something that doesn't not. If he had just swung around and said, I require you, I would have been like, I'm out of here.
Right.
But he knew
how to, I mean, it's what dominants do. It's what they learn.
And thankfully
which is,
he was a good dom.
Right.
And even though he was a sadist and he pushed me further, when I said red, it was done immediately. And I had taken way more than I thought I ever would. But the second one, again, same mistake. Didn't have a community. I enjoyed the first one. We had a good time. I don't even remember. It just ended probably PCSing or just, I don't know, just something. It wasn't, yeah. The second one that I started the very first time we met, and we had communicated a while because I was just trying to, feel it out. Hey, my first dom said he was a dom. He was kind of sadist, blah, blah, blah. Went to his place the very first time we met. Very first time during the day, went to his house. I did take a picture again of but had he been waiting there with a gun, I wouldn't have gotten the picture of his ID to send somewhere.
No. and like I said, these first two doms, I did not know their real names. I didn't even know their real names. And the first dom, we were going to meet at a coffee shop, but then we decided that how about this? And so he gave me all these instructions. I was completely naked, all fours on my bed. On my bed, I left the door open for him to come in. I was blindfolded. I've never laid eyes on the first dom in real life. I have only ever seen pictures. I do know his name. I did figure it out. But I didn't at the time.
Listen, people.
That was, by the way, silly.
All of our listeners and viewers, listen. These are not things you do. These are the things, because you're new into submissive and you're interested in it. Sounds so amazing. You want to do it. Do not do it. We bring a partner. Do something that will save your life, because they could have killed us.
Very much
could be dead.
There's no doubt about it. Sometimes it's like, guys, it is not a red cape. It is a giant red flag. But you become, like I said, it was the most erotic thing I had ever done. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was also one of the stupidest things that I could have done. Did I have people that I was confiding in? No, I didn't know anybody in the BDSM community. I didn't know anybody that I could actually be honest with about what I was doing. stupid things.
Here
because
I am going to his house in the South where everybody has a gun.
Yep.
Like I wasn't even thinking.
wasn't
like
even
I could
thinking.
have been buried in his farm.
we could not be here in this moment just based on these early experiences that you and I had.
Now, the experiences themselves, hot. There were a lot of sexy, hot things. I learned that I'm a servant. Like I enjoy serving my partner. And there's, I pronounce it wrong every time I try to say it, but I like serving.
Yes.
So he really triggered me into that with making his drink and telling me how bad it was. Like, how could you, there are 3 ingredients in this drink, Dee. How could you fuck it up so bad? Go make me another. And I would go like, I'm going to get this.
Right? I was going to say.
And then when he complimented me, like, that's a little bit better than the last time. I'm going to reward you. I was like, yeah.
It's amazing how these praise king. And then like you said, you're serving. And then some of that little degrading stuff in there too.
Was.
Like
I'm not. So then my second one tried to degrade via text, where and I reacted very poorly. I said, the next time you call me a bitch via text, we're going to have an issue because of childhood stuff.
Well, and sometimes real life stuff does not translate over. Online relationships are different than in-person relationships, and they don't always translate the same. And I totally understand that.
Like if you're, slamming your cock into my mouth and saying, "Are you my fuck toy?" That is a shit ton different
than a message that pops up on your phone.
Fuck toy, go get me, whatever.
Exactly. Well, there was one time where that second dom couldn't show up, so he decided that he was going to try to have an online like FaceTime session with me, and I couldn't do it. I could not. I mean, like when he's standing in front of me and telling me what to do, that's hot, and I'm doing it. I'm doing it as fast as I can. But when he was across, when he wasn't physically there, and he was on, I couldn't I couldn't bring myself to obey. I couldn't bring myself to do those things. Not everything works all the time.
Okay, so after those 2, what happened in your life after those 2?
Then, like I said, I had a relationship that reignited.
Okay.
And
was it a DS relationship?
I had to go to this person and be like, look, our relationship before was not. In fact, it was very vanilla and things, but I know things about myself. It was one of those defining moments where I said, kind of like what you were talking about the beginning, this is kink. I now know it about myself. And I can't put this cat back in this bag.
Yeah.
I have to have it. It has to be a part. So if you want this relationship with me, you have to do one of 2 things. You have to be this for me, or you have to let me find it. And I was able to, that was a turning point for me to be able to stand up and say, I need this. It's not negotiable. And that was something I hadn't really done into that point. So yes, the answer was as soon as that next one came, it was like, I realize what our past may have been, but our future has to be this.
So was that individual able to transition into the things that you needed?
Yes, we spent some time exploring it together. He asked a lot of questions, asked me a lot about like, what okay, so fine, what drives you, what? And so anyways, we had to have that moment where we had the discussion to decide whether we were going to be able to put that back together. And there was a moment where he was a bit unsure. And I was like, well, I guess then we're going to have to kind of part ways, but continue seeing where that would go. And he spent some time thinking about it himself. And then he was like, that's it. There's no one else that I'm going to allow to be that for you. I'm going to do that with you. And so then I got back into that relationship with that partner, and we began to explore kink together then.
Okay.
And that was, of course, that of course was now a whole relationship, not just online.
DS.
This was a whole life.
Okay.
This was a whole life DS 24/7.
How did that change things, do you think? How did that make things different?
Well, number one, when you add an element, you really go from a very vanilla relationship, and now you have this not anywhere close to. So it did change things. It made things hot, and it kindled that relationship. It was an adventure that we were exploring together.
That's a great way
and-
to say it.
And then making, because at that point I was still fairly new. These new doms that I'm talking about, we're talking about months for me.
Right.
Okay. And so we began doing it together. And the other thing was we began finding a local dungeon together. We began making a whole new set of friends together. And so
Okay.
it was, like I said earlier, was a new chapter.
Yeah, see, I think a lot of, okay, I can't say that. In the DS interactions that I had where it was strictly DS, I'm not meeting other friends with them. It's a strictly DS interaction.
Yes.
Each and every time. It's not like we go to a club where I'm interacting as a couple. So that I didn't even think about how much that changes.
It very opened it up. It opened it up when all of a sudden our friend group is now our kinky friend, BDSM group. And so
dinners
we were
are
making
so much fun. In case you were wondering, so much more fun as a BDSM group because you never know what happens. I mean, Master Nick is carrying this little leather slapper on he hooks it to his belt loop and it pulls it out. And I mean, people at normal places look at us all and they can't take their eyes off of all the craziness.
We are the most entertaining thing that they'll see that evening. You're welcome. Now we do try to behave when we're in vanilla society because we try to be respectful, but we also we have so much fun together.
There's so many little things that happen that, we were at a bar and one of my friends that's been out of town, we've talked to her about her on the podcast before, but Holly was there and, somebody comes walking up and had a baby Jesus, baby, like the little baby Jesus.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? In her cleavage. And so Holly just dove in and grabbed it out with her teeth. And the people at the table, these women were, oh my God, did you see that? Like they were. And so I subsequently told Holly, who did it 3 more times just to make a point.
Right. I love Holly.
I love Holly. So, okay. And then, that relationship obviously ended as well because we're not talking about Dante on that one.
We're not talking about Dante. That was the relationship that I had right before him. And what I would say is, unfortunately for that relationship, it was for him, I think it was a lot about the newness and it began to wear off. There were other things that caught his attention, other things that kind of drew him away. And I was going months and months and I was begging and begging, please, I need this. And of course, like I said, he wasn't letting me get it anyplace else. And I think that was, of course, that was one of the things when I look back at that relationship, it's one of the things that doomed it was I knew I needed it and I wasn't getting it and he was no longer interested. And I think one of the hardest and saddest things as a submissive that I ever did was it was just a really bad evening and he left and I was standing there in the kitchen and it hit me. This is done.
Right.
And that night I took off my own collar and I never put that collar back.
Yeah. If you're not.
And that's a hard thing for a submissive because there's nothing that's quite as much of a prized possession as your collar.
Right.
And I had to do that. And yeah, so that relationship really just was it was a slow, hard fizzle. And that was one of the things that really began to wake me up about what was going on around me was I can't get what I need here.
And I just recently had a discussion with another submissive, or we were in everybody was discussing, and there was a submissive who I said, I just want you to know that my submissive is something separate than just me. Like there's me, I live my life, I'm dominant, I take care of everything, alpha sub, whatever you want to call it. I'm just who I am. And then there's sex, and I have great orgasms, and it doesn't have to involve DS every time.
Right.
And we're just having sex in the bed, and it's amazing. Although he always puts little elements of I'm the dom in it, but nothing like spankings and stuff like that. Just sex. But those do not satisfy my submissive. That is if my submissive isn't taken care of, I start poking him. It starts becoming a problem. And what happened is he recognizes the signs because it's been a couple of weeks because of work, school, whatever. 3 weeks will go by. And then what'll happen is he'll amp up the dom and we will have sex and I will have a release. And after the release, I will sob, cry, break down because all of that submissive energy has been bottled up without release. And if you're not releasing it, then half of me is gone. It's not, I'm all dom and not my sub. My sub is going, help me, take care of me.
This previous partner, when we were talking about, talking about bratting, that's a very popular subject to talk about. And I know that sometimes people say I'm the ringleader.
You are the ringleader. If anybody is, Zorra is. Zorra is the one that will get us all in trouble because the minute we spend some time with her, we're poking the bear.
Absolutely. Because, it's fun. But we were having this discussion.
Especially when she's not the one getting the punishments.
I will help any of my fellow submissives to a good ass beating. Absolutely, I will. But when we were talking about, I remember my last partner used to like to think deeply about things. And we used to talk a lot about the whys and the hows, and we like to think deeply about them. And when we were talking about bratting, we were talking about how that in many cases, it's a response to a lack of something.
Yes.
And it is a call to a dominant.
Yes.
And bratting, of course, can be done in a way, but oftentimes it's actually it's a cry for help almost from a submissive. She is going above and beyond to get attention.
And there are some brats that's what they are. The dynamic sets up like that from the beginning, and it is not that. It is not that need. They just want that constant.
We use the word, we're very distinct about it in our contract. We use the word sassy because I don't want anybody to get the idea that being submissive means that you're demure and you're a wet rag and you just sit back and you just say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here's your meals. No, but I this is one thing I love about Sir Dante. He's like, and when you're exploring this, he's like, do you want strict obedience from me? He's like, heck no.
Right. Oh God.
Sass is the spice of life. Okay.
You two too. You guys do it.
And we do. And he is the one that actually really called that up out of me. None of the previous 3 doms I had, the first 2 did not like sass. At all.
And that changed how you behaved.
It absolutely. And so,
especially since you were baby.
Yes.
Baby submissive.
I had to learn how to do that. And so what I like to say is just because you're submissive doesn't mean that you are quiet and withdrawn. You can be as lively as you want. In fact, my dom loves it and wouldn't have it any other way.
Mine too. Because I sass. Is that's
the word we
the
use?
Good word is sass, so that I'm not.
You're alive and you have a personality.
I
and
sass
you're
your
fun.
dom a lot, and
yes,
your dom looks at my dom, and my dom goes,
right, exactly. And there are a lot of fun submissives friends that you have, many of them that you have had on this podcast, and there is nothing quite like sassing Sir Dante and seeing how much you can get away with, and then they're always looking for that breaking point. And he gives he gives it back to them in kind, but bratting being when you go to the dictionary and you define bratting, it is a defiance. It is, it is being a smart mouth to,
because that's how it's defined. So, like, if you use that
word to define it, and so when you're bratting, you're actually going up against. Now, of course, what we know in our kink world, it has a nuance to it. It has a connotation, and a lot of times I've heard a good description. A brat doesn't want to win, but they certainly want to earn it.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing about it is, like you said, I do a lot of lively talking.
Yes.
With my dom. However, my dom has made it very clear that he will make the call on whether I have been sassy or whether I've been bratty. And bratty behavior comes with consequences, and it is the very fun game that we have, walking that line and making sure I don't fall off the other end. Otherwise, Dante absolutely takes care of that. But absolutely.
Well, sassy would be like me standing next to Master Nick in the VIP with my tall boots. Like, these are tall. You're
Right?
talking heels that are for 8 inches.
Yes.
Like, these are tall with platform. And I'm standing next to him feeling tall. And he immediately gives me the symbol to get on my knees because I'm done sassing him being tall.
Exactly. And you know, that's the fun thing about life. And I think that, I mean, there's so many fun games that we play together. Everyone in our group knows that Master Nick does not want to see panties
under their skirts.
And of course, that's your personal rule, but we all play into that, except me. I'm just going to look straight in the camera and I'm going to say, Master Nick, remember that one time that you needed a green pair of panties to win one of Lady D's games? That was all me. You needed undies. So anyways,
we got to post that one. We got to post that picture because he actually put it like a turban on his head.
So underwear does come in but once again,
that's because you have a fine ass that is beautiful, and mine is like I'm working.
I don't that it's funny for me. I love how that sexy undies make me feel. Okay, I guess it's a little bit different, but. Absolutely.
It's just under the dress that we're not allowed to wear them. Just under the dress.
Yes.
Because at night, once everybody changes into their lingerie,
we've all got it.
We all have underwear on at that point.
We've all got it on. But yeah, different DOMs, learning them has been an experience. And I will say that, so that third relationship was a romantic relationship. It was a domestic relationship. And it does change things. Those first 2 relationships, and I think you would say the same, they almost had like a professional distance.
Yes.
And of course, like you said, I think that does cause someone, that distance also gives them a little bit more freedom to be a bit more cold, sadistic. And if that's your style of play, go for it. Okay. I understand that. But the domestic, the 24/7 dynamic definitely flavors the relationship in a very different way.
What do you prefer having had?
I like them both. I like them both.
So does Sir Dante cross that better from my perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Other than, hey, work is crazy, you guys sick, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In my perspective, I would see, because he's very black and white about your contract and the requirements, that he would be the best of both worlds. And I could be wrong. I'm not, best of both worlds for you. Me, if I'm at home, I can't handle that kind of, I'm not as good with the hardcore right or wrong, because I want to argue. I want to disagree a lot. You do too. I know.
I do too.
But you don't get away with it.
I don't get away with it. That's my problem. It's like, you can argue, but do you see what you're racking up over here? So, once again, I make my choices.
Right.
Very much so.
Yes, you pick and choose.
Within my contract, and that's probably the beauty of it. I know how big a check my mouth is writing.
And she does write those
I write
checks.
some big checks sometimes. But,
my question is, because you are a masochist,
yes,
part of it, do your punishments, does it change the way he punishes you so that he's not feeding into your masochism?
Well, there's kind of this thing like, you can't spank a masochist in order to punish them. I beg to differ. And I think part of it is that part of me that wants to please him and be the best. And a punishment is because we talked about it in that podcast. We don't have punishments.
Right.
If I want if I want a spanking or whatever, I get that in play. I've earned it because I've been a good girl. But punishments are very much, they are because I have missed the mark. And it doesn't take much for Sir Dante to be like, you're getting these because you have failed and you haven't done this, or, and
that hurts us.
And that's an internal thing.
Yes.
And, even as a masochist, those hits hurt. And they're very different than what it is that we're doing when we're playing.
Yes.
They are very, with Sir Dante, they are very difficult to take. They're the ones that typically leave marks, and they're
Yeah.
the ones that he has less patience and indulgence for. They are on his terms.
Right.
And so, yes, punishments are they're very different. And even though I'm a masochist, I think that like disappointing him versus these very, very hard hits.
Right. But he also has in the past, I don't know, as you develop your relationship, maybe it gets hard. He had creative punishments too that had nothing to do with spankings.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have a masochist and they are really hardcore about it, then maybe, yes, punishing your masochist with impact is not.
Yeah,
I've been
mental.
mental. I have, throughout all of these DOMs or whatever, I have had to write lines. I have had to, I remember one punishment was I was naked and I had a note that said, this is a punishment from my Dom.
And
that was my FetLife. That was my FetLife profile picture for a week. And of course it was not a picture of me that I thought was very flattering or anything like that.
Not.
But there was me holding my little sign. And of course it was embarrassing,
You came to the club one time. You have a special collar made up.
Do.
It's a collar. And what does the collar say?
Do not interact.
We all were like, oh my God, we can't talk to her, but it's Zorra. Like, it's Zorra. So we'd start and then we'd have to turn away because we were interacting.
Yes.
You had to have somebody like stand around you to remind people that
I was not allowed to. I love to talk to my friends. I love to talk to my friends.
And that was when you walked in, wasn't it?
No, I walked in because everybody got warned because this collar is going I had to wear it for an hour while we were at the club at a party. And I was not, you were right. Like he handed me off to a couple different DOMs and I had to stay right next to them. And I wasn't allowed to flag them down or communicate with them. And they were very specific with, you can't
one of the hard things is cause I would look at you and your eyes would go wide and I'm like, I better walk away because that's communicating. Like somebody's going to see this.
Well, that's the reason that it's not, do not talk.
Right.
Because Dante knew that oh, well, that's a fun game. Let me see how many things I can say to my. So, I can't sit there and write you messages. I can't sit there and text you messages
at all.
I cannot interact. So, brilliant punishment.
Okay.
And that deters a lot.
We're getting at the end of the
we
episode.
are. Here we go.
Let's do this. And this is kind of off the cuff. Tell me one. So all DOMs are different. Tell me one situation that happened with one DOM that was your favorite BDSM experience, or I know I'm throwing this off the cuff. I'm sorry. Something that was like your hardcore. It suited you. This is exactly what you want in your life, and it made you just glow for a week. Tell me something good.
Okay, so it was like it wasn't just one moment, it was the experience. So I will say, let me put it this way: my favorite and best moments are with Sir Dante, but I'm gonna just he's my present, so I'm gonna talk about
and there'll be lots more about the present.
And so that second DOM, that high protocol. That first night that we started putting together he had all these requirements. I had to have a toy list. I had to do this. And it was just coming at me right and left. And the first DOM had let me kind of sass a little bit and everything like that. So in this moment where I was feeling all this pressure about getting all this stuff together and doing it right now.
You had 30 minutes, right?
I had, it was a timed thing. I was feeling the pressure. So I bratted at him and I did it so hard that he literally was like, pause. And we had to have a conversation about it. And that's when I realized, oh, this is a different DOM and he doesn't want any of that. He wants direct obedience. He wants immediate obedience. And then that was when that turned into that game. And the game, of course, like I said, was very much an online relationship. And so, it was you leave home, you get there, you check in, better be on time, doing this, any type of assignments during the day. If he told me I needed to send him a picture, if I needed to find out, I'd tell him about this or that, or I had to get this or, whatever those tasks were online, that response. Who do you belong to? I belong to you, sir. Those had to come immediately. Constantly watching, constantly focused. But that during, like, I remember, if I went to a bar, number one, getting permission was quite a task. And then number two, I had drinking restrictions. So when I went in, I would have to text him what drink I was drinking. And then I would have to wait exactly an hour to have another one.
Oh.
And I could only have one drink per hour.
Did you ever cheat?
No. No, it was such a fun game.
Okay.
It was such a fun game. But I also had to stop drinking an hour before I was going to leave. So I had to text him that last drink, and then I had to wait an hour before I left, and I had to text him obviously where I was and where I was going so that he would know how long it was going to take me. And then I had to text him immediately when I was home. This was a lot to like do life and juggle all of this.
Right.
And it took me a while to catch it. But one of the things that made me immensely proud was, even though he had all of these minute, like I said, high protocol, done this way, exactly, on time, perfectly. Even though he had all those requirements for me,
it made you.
And by that relationship was about 3 months. By the end of that 3 months, I was pretty badass about juggling my vanilla life and getting all this DS in there. And that made me so proud, because I wasn't getting I'll take care of that later. My list was getting short because I was remembering it and I was doing it. And so it was that whole period of time. And that was what was making me glowing, was all these requirements. Like I said, I was overwhelmed at first, and the time limits and all the requirements and all this. But then I got into the swing of things, and I was able to do it. And so that was what made me happy, was all of this put on me. It felt overwhelmed, but then I was on it, man. I was a good little subby, and I was checking in. I was doing all my assignment. That right there, being able to gold star it, not get in trouble.
Right.
That was right on. That was a fun mental game.
It takes so much to build and develop that. So you're developing as a sub while you're doing it, but that sounds like,
oh yeah.
Well, one of the things that we want to do, it was your idea, not mine, is to do a high protocol dinner.
Yes.
That is something that we've got to.
Oh, absolutely. And it would not be something that we just walk into like the subs. Number one, there would be a mistress, whatever title we would give her. She's in charge of all the submissives, and all the submissives will know the protocol. They will know where they sit and how they serve and where they look and where they.
It just makes me happy inside to even think of it.
Because the thing about it is by the time you're done accomplishing it, it's not just like, oh, we walked in and we did a good job of obeying and somebody bratted. No one's going to be bratting. No one's going to be barely opening their mouths. They're going to be serving their dominance, and it's going to be fun because the game inside will be remembering all of these things. It's going to be a fun mental game, and that's what I love about
that enjoy
serving. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's me.
Me too.
So I'm down for it. So any of our friends, if you're down for it, send us a message.
Yeah,
we're
looking forward to it. And it's going to be fun.
And then like would the mistress be like Milady K?
Yeah, I was gonna say it would be like somebody Milady K. And by the way, I feel like at that point, after us rehearsing and doing as she, as she's in essence, that person is planning how those subs will act and how they, it's almost like you're sitting next to your own sub, but you're keeping a good look over there at Lady K and making sure that that she's pleased. And so it's just an amazing game. Once again, DS. It's going to be a power structure all the way down, but it's going to be responding to that and being able to serve in that. And it's going to make subbies feel happy and sunshiny and lemony all inside. Okay?
I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Well, we have talked because, we have a couple of words. No, I don't have the words.
No, all of my friends say that I am like the bonus track every movie.
She has all the words.
All the words you didn't need. And I still have them.
And those that you needed too. She has them all. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We love that you listen to us. And hopefully this episode gives you some insight to the submissive side of stuff and how relationships develop, how they change you, and the things you don't freaking do.
Oh my goodness.
When you're new.
And when you have a question about whether you should, ask.
Because you shouldn't.
Probably not.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Till next
Bye.
time. Please follow, like, and share our podcast.
Make sure to visit thedomlife.com, where you can find pictures and other details about the Dom Life podcast. And through the Contact Us button, you can ask questions or provide recommendations for future episodes.
We want to explore your kink too.
Be sure to check out upcoming events to see where our adventures are taking us and our photo gallery to where we've been.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you had fun listening and learning with us.
Till next time, keep calm and remember your safe word.
Red, red, red.